What in the hell gives you the right to judge who belongs here? Have you ever been so unjustly accused, so publicly humiliated that the world just stops? Before we get into the absolute nuclear karma that unfolds in this story, do me a solid, smash that like button and subscribe to Blacktail Stories. Seriously, you're gonna want to be here for this. And drop a comment right now. What would you do if someone spat words like this in your face? People like you don't belong in a place like this, especially not with fraudulent checks. The words, dripping with a venomous sweetness, slithered across the polished marble counter. Tiffany Vance's acrylic nails, each a perfectly sculpted stiletto of shimmering pink, pinched the corner of the $75,000 check as if it were contaminated. Without a shred of hesitation, a cruel smirk playing on her lips, she ripped it clean in half. The sound was a deafening crack in the cathedral-like silence of the Viridian Trust Bank's Atlanta headquarters. Then she tore it again. And again. The confetti of a life's work, of a hard-won research grant, scattered across the counter's cold, unforgiving surface. Dr. Alana Reed watched the shredded remains of her consultation fee from the Emory University Medical Research Division flutter to the floor like dying birds. She sat perfectly still on the leather and chrome stool, her posture impeccable in a simple, elegant charcoal gray cashmere sweater. She remained placid, composed. From the outside, she was a statue of tranquility in a sea of rising tension. "Security!" Tiffany's voice, now shrill and triumphant, pierced the lobby's hushed atmosphere. "We have an active fraud situation at Teller 4. Every head in the pristine lobby swiveled. A stockbroker mid-call lowered his phone. A woman adjusting her diamond tennis bracelet paused. Every eye was suddenly a lens, every gaze a judgment. In the corner, a young woman with vibrant purple hair, waiting for what she assumed would be a boring trip to the ATM, saw the drama unfold. Her name was Jasmine, and she instinctively hit "Go Live" on her Instagram. The little red icon pulsed, and the viewer counter began its dizzying climb. 0, 10, 100. Alana's wallet, a tasteful and well-worn leather piece, lay open on the counter. The metallic glint of a Centurion black card, the almost mythical American Express card reserved for the ultra-wealthy, peeked out from its slot. But Tiffany's eyes, clouded by a storm of assumptions, were fixed on something else entirely. They were fixed on the color of Alana's skin. "May I please speak with your branch manager?" Alana's voice was a low, steady current in the churning river of chaos. It was the voice of a surgeon in the operating room, a voice that had calmly given orders while holding a human heart in her hands. Tiffany's smirk widened into a sneer. "Honey, you're looking at management, and you're about to be speaking with the Atlanta PD. Have you ever been in a place where you belonged more than anyone else, only to be treated like an intruder? Let me know your story in the comments. This is a judgment-free zone, and we need to talk about this." The time was 2:47 p.m. In exactly 13 minutes, the quarterly Board of Directors meeting was scheduled to begin on the 70th floor of this very building. "Security to the main lobby. Code 10 fraud in progress. Possible forgery of a high-value check." Tiffany's voice boomed through the intercom, each word a hammer blow of self-importance. She stabbed the button with her acrylic nail as if she were personally vanquishing a villain. Her meticulously microbladed eyebrows arched in a display of theatrical authority as she turned her venomous gaze back to Alana. Jasmine's Instagram live stream was exploding. The comment section was a waterfall of text, scrolling too fast for any human to read. "OMG, call the cops now. This is 25 people, record everything. That lady seems way too calm, though. Something's off. Tiffany from Viridian Trust is a Karen." Jasmine, a 20-year-old journalism student at Georgia State, watched her viewer count surge past 2,000. Her hands began to tremble, but she forced them steady, knowing this was more than just drama. This was a story. This was evidence. "Y'all are seeing this, right? This is blatant profiling," she whispered into her phone's microphone. The chat erupted in a cascade of fire emojis, angry faces, and calls for justice. Richard Sterling, the branch manager, emerged from his glass-walled office in the back, like a shark gliding through tranquil waters. He was a monument to middle management authority, all 6 feet and 2 inches of him radiating a sense of unearned superiority. His tailored Brooks Brothers suit probably cost more than Jasmine's semester tuition. He surveyed the scene, his eyes flicking from the torn check to Tiffany's triumphant face, and finally landing on Alana with a practiced air of condescension. "Ma'am." His tone was the verbal equivalent of a pat on the head, a sound so dripping with dismissiveness that it made several customers physically cringe. "This establishment provides services to legitimate customers. I'm going to have to ask you to leave before we involve law enforcement." Alana remained seated, her posture a silent rebuke to his arrogance. Her spine was straight, yet her shoulders were relaxed. Clipped to the inside of her blazer, invisible to the prying eyes of the lobby, was her medical faculty ID from Emory University Hospital. The edge of the Centurion card still peeked from her wallet, a silent testament to a world Richard couldn't fathom. Her iPhone, resting on the marble, buzzed softly. A notification lit up the screen. "Board meeting reminder, 13 minutes." She glanced at the notification, her mind a whirlwind of calculations. She then looked back at Richard, her gaze imbued with the profound calm that comes from decades of making life-or-death decisions under unimaginable pressure. "I understand your concern for security," she said, her voice quiet but carrying the measured cadence of someone who is not just listened to, but obeyed. "The check is a grant payment from the Emory University Medical Research Division for my work in pediatric neuro-oncology. You can easily verify it with their finance department. The number is right there on the letterhead you just destroyed." "These people always have a story," Tiffany interjected, her voice pitched high and loud for the benefit of the growing audience of onlookers and phone cameras. Her confidence was the unassailable armor of someone who has never been truly challenged, never been held accountable, never been proven devastatingly wrong. She rolled her eyes for dramatic effect. "Elaborate explanations, fake documents, they put on a whole performance." Richard, puffing out his chest, positioned himself strategically between Alana and the main entrance. It wasn't an overtly threatening move, but the message was as clear as the plate glass windows. "You are not leaving. You are trapped." He crossed his arms, a smug nod of approval directed at Tiffany's performance. "Ma'am, checks of this suspicious magnitude require additional verification. It's our standard protocol for certain situations." The pregnant pause he left before the words, "certain situations," hung in the air like a toxic fog. 2:48 p.m., 12 minutes remaining. The live stream chat was a schizophrenic mix of outrage and suspicion. "75K check is kinda sus, not gonna lie. Oi, that bank teller is on a power trip, OMG. Why isn't the customer yelling? She's too calm. I don't know about this." This is textbook racial profiling. A Viridian Trust, you're done. The customers in the lobby began to unconsciously choose sides, an invisible line being drawn down the center of the marble floor. An elderly woman, draped in pearls and smelling of expensive perfume, shook her head with theatrical disapproval. "Just call the police and get it over with," her voice rasped across the lobby. "Some of us have actual business to attend to." But a few feet away, a young Latino man clutched his 6-year-old daughter's hand a little tighter. He leaned down and whispered to her. Mija, mira bien. This is not right. Remember this moment. Near the ATMs, a well-dressed black man in a sharp suit didn't pull out his phone to go live on social media. He opened his camera app and began recording, his face a grim mask of weary recognition. He was not documenting drama. He was collecting evidence. 2:49 p.m. 11 minutes until the meeting. Tiffany's performance was escalating into a full-blown melodrama. Should I call the FBI's white-collar crime division? A check this large could be part of a bigger scheme. She turned to Richard, her eyes wide with feigned concern. Then, addressing the crowd, she added, "She's probably on drugs or something. Look how calm she is. That's not how innocent people act when they're accused of a felony." She stopped to examine her flawless nails, as if she were discussing brunch plans instead of systematically demolishing a human being's reputation in real time. A security guard, Marcus Williams, approached the scene with a visible, profound reluctance. He was 55 years old, with 20 of those years spent on this very floor. He was a black man, and the entire situation was making his stomach churn with a familiar, sickening acid. His radio crackled with protocols he was supposed to follow, but his eyes, when they met Alana's, reflected the deep moral conflict of his position. He'd seen this play before. He knew the tragic, unjust ending all too well. Alana's iPhone buzzed again, more insistently this time. The caller ID flashed on the screen. Julian Reed, CEO office, direct line. She glanced at the screen, then at the countdown on her phone's lock screen, and with the surgical precision of a master, she declined the call. The small, deliberate action did not go unnoticed by the rapt audience. "I would like to speak to your regional branch manager, please," she repeated, her voice still an island of calm. It was the unshakable calm of a pilot navigating through a catastrophic engine failure. Panicking would only crash the plane. Richard's chest puffed out, wounded and indignant. "I am the branch manager, lady. I've been running this flagship location for 12 years. There is no one higher than me on this floor." The word lady was a condescending dart, designed to diminish and dismiss, but Alana didn't even flinch. 2:50 p.m. 10 minutes until her son, the CEO of this entire banking corporation, expected her in the 70th floor boardroom. Karen Price, the assistant branch manager, materialized from a back office, arriving like a cavalry charge to support a failing line. She clutched a clipboard to her chest like a shield, her face a mask of self-righteous certainty, the look of a career bureaucrat defending corporate policy above all else. "What is the situation here, Richard?" she demanded, though her tone made it clear she had already formed a conclusion. "Attempted check fraud," Tiffany announced with the authority of a prosecuting attorney. "Massive amount, probably a stolen identity, and her behavior is extremely suspicious. Look how unnaturally calm she is. Guilty people always overcompensate by acting calm. In Alana's open wallet, a first-class boarding pass from her recent trip to a medical symposium at the Mayo Clinic was clearly visible. Her leather-bound planner lay open on the counter, a gold-plated fountain pen marking today's entry in elegant script. Board meeting, 3:00 p.m., 70th floor, conference room Alpha. But no one was looking at the details that mattered. They were only looking at the conclusion they had already drawn. 2:53 p.m., 7 minutes remaining. The lobby had fully transformed into a 21st-century digital coliseum. More than 30 customers now formed a semicircle around the teller station, their phones raised like torches, documenting every humiliating word, every condescending gesture. The bank's soaring, vaulted ceilings amplified every whisper into a chorus of public judgment. Jasmine's live stream had shattered 10,000 viewers. The comments were a blur of pure chaos. "That's a doctor's planner." "Banking, while black is going viral right now. I feel a plot twist coming. I'm staying for this. That Karen needs to be fired, yesterday. Someone call the local news. Channel 2, Channel 11. Screenshots were already making the rounds on X, formerly Twitter. A well-known local activist and blogger, Marcus Brooks, was seen rushing through the revolving doors, his professional camera equipment clanking as he moved. The story was no longer contained within these marble walls. It was metastasizing across the digital landscape. Karen Price brandished her clipboard like a weapon. Her voice rose, shrill and officious. Ma'am, I am officially informing you that we are prepared to ban you from all 1,200 Viridian Trust branches nationwide if you do not cooperate. This disruptive behavior is unacceptable. Tiffany's confidence, bolstered by her superiors, soared to new heights. I've dealt with this type of situation hundreds of times, she announced to her captive audience. Welfare fraud, food stamp scams, identity theft rings, they all have the same calm, detached demeanor when they're finally caught. Her hands moved in theatrical gestures, as if she were conducting an orchestra of her own prejudice. 2:54 p.m. 6 minutes until the board meeting. The dynamics of the crowd began to shift like storm clouds. The woman in pearls found her voice again. This is utterly ridiculous. Some of us have legitimate financial matters to conduct. Her tone was clear. Alana, the victim, was the source of the problem, not the bank's treatment of her. But the young Latino father moved protectively closer to his daughter. Misha, watch very, very carefully, he whispered again, his voice urgent. This is why we must always fight for justice. Never forget this. The black man by the ATM, who had been quietly recording, now discreetly airdropped the video file to his wife, his lawyer, and 2 trusted friends. His expression was a grim tapestry of recognition, woven from a lifetime of similar, though less public, scenarios. 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes remain. Richard Sterling, feeding off the energy of the room, puffed his chest out even further. Pattern recognition is a key component of our advanced anti-fraud training, he declared, his voice booming with authority. Certain demographics attempt these kinds of schemes with alarming frequency. He paused, letting the vile implication hang in the air like poison gas. We have a duty to protect our legitimate customers from financial predators. The word predator echoed off the marble floor and vaulted ceiling. Assistant Manager Karen Price nodded sagely, her clipboard now an instrument of bureaucratic oppression. I'm calling corporate security. This has escalated beyond standard branch protocol. She reached for the red phone behind the counter, the one reserved for robberies and emergencies. Alana's iPhone buzzed, a long, insistent vibration against the cold marble. The screen lit up. Julian Reed, CEO office, urgent. She glanced at it, then at the time, then declined the call again with the steady hand of a surgeon making a critical incision. The small act sent a new wave of ripples through the crowd. Who declines an urgent call in a situation like this? 2:56 p.m., 4 minutes remaining. Marcus Williams, the security guard, finally stepped forward, his face a canvas of profound reluctance. 20 years of service, countless alarms, a few actual robberies, but nothing had ever felt as wrong as this. The moral weight of the moment was crushing him. His radio crackled with calls for backup he hadn't requested. Ma'am, he said, his voice quiet, barely audible above the din. I'm going to have to ask you to come with me to the security office in the back. It wasn't a request. It was an order he clearly did not want to give. Alana looked up at him, and for a fleeting, powerful moment, a silent conversation passed between them. It was a look of recognition, of shared understanding, of the complex, painful reality of being black in America, even when on opposite sides of a badge and an accusation. I understand your position completely, she said, her voice so soft it was for his ears only. "You're just doing your job." Marcus's jaw tightened, an almost imperceptible twitch. 2:57 p.m. 3 minutes until her son, his boss's boss's boss, expected her upstairs. Tiffany, sensing the endgame, went for the kill. "Should we call the Atlanta PD's Financial Crimes Unit? I have a friend who's a detective there." Her voice rang out across the lobby like a town crier, gleefully announcing a public execution. "Fake checks over $20,000 are a federal offense, you know. That's FBI jurisdiction." Jasmine's livestream viewer count hit a staggering 15,000. Her hands were shaking so much she had to brace her phone against a pamphlet stand. This was the biggest, most important moment of her young life, and she knew it. Outside, the sleek black vans of local news stations were pulling up to the curb. Channel 2, 11 Alive, Fox 5. Someone had leaked the live stream link to the media. Richard gestured grandly to his audience of customers and cameras. "This is precisely why we have these protocols. This is why we verify. This is why we protect our community from—" He stopped himself mid-sentence, catching the word before it could tumble out of his mouth and end his career. But everyone in that lobby, everyone watching on that live stream, knew what unspoken word was hanging in the air. This was the peak of her humiliation. 2:58 p.m. 2 minutes remaining. "Ma'am, you need to understand your place in this situation," Tiffany declared, her voice ringing with the absolute finality of a judge delivering a life sentence. Her words echoed in the cavernous space. And then, she made her fatal mistake. Fueled by a toxic cocktail of prejudice and power, she reached across the counter and snatched Alana's purse. With a dramatic, theatrical flourish, she upended it, dumping its entire contents across the wide marble surface. "Let's just see what else in here is fake." The items scattered like shrapnel from an explosion: a tube of lip balm, car keys, a small tin of breath mints, a pair of reading glasses. But among them were things Tiffany, in her wildest, most ignorant dreams, had not expected. A medical journal, hot off the press, fell open to a peer-reviewed article. "Innovations in Pediatric Neuro-Oncology, a Novel Approach to Inoperable Tumors," by lead author Dr. Alana M. Reed. Hospital ID badges from Emory, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and Grady Memorial Hospital. A stack of business cards, embossed on heavy cardstock. Dr. Alana M. Reed, Chief of Pediatric Neurosurgery, Emory University School of Medicine. And finally, the leather-bound planner that had been knocked to the side fell open again to today's page, the elegant script now impossible to ignore. 3:00 p.m. Board of Directors meeting, Viridian Trust HQ, 70th floor, Conference Room Alpha. Tiffany's hands froze mid-air. The entire lobby seemed to press forward, a wave of bodies craning their necks, reading the scattered evidence over each other's shoulders. Jasmine zoomed her camera in, focusing on each item, her live stream audience absolutely losing their minds in real time. "She's a doctor, a chief of surgery. The board meeting is in that building upstairs. Oh my God, Tiffany is so fired. Plot twist of the century. 3, 2, 1. 2:59 p.m., 1 minute until the board meeting. The lobby fell into a silence so profound, so absolute, that the gentle hum of the HVAC system sounded like a jet engine. The air crackled with unspoken realization. Alana calmly looked at her personal belongings, strewn across the counter like wreckage. Then she looked at the stunned faces in the crowd, at Richard Sterling, whose face was rapidly losing color, at Tiffany Vance, who looked like she'd seen a ghost. Finally, she looked up at the small, blinking red lights of the security cameras in the corners of the ceiling. With movements as calm and precise as the surgical instruments she wielded every day, she reached for her iPhone. Her finger hovered over a contact in her favorites list, labeled simply Julian. The livestream audience was now a virtual stampede. 20,000 viewers and climbing. 3:00 p.m. It was time. "I believe," Alana said, her voice slicing through the thick, shocked silence like a scalpel. "It's time for me to call my son." From the far end of the lobby, an elevator chimed. A soft, melodic tone. The sound was followed by footsteps. Multiple sets of footsteps echoing on the marble floor. They were the sounds of expensive, hard-soled shoes. The kind of shoes that belonged in boardrooms, not bank lobbies. The kind of shoes that announced the arrival of power. Tiffany's face, which had been pale, began to drain of all color as the horrifying, impossible pieces of the puzzle began to click together in her mind. The footsteps were getting closer. 3:01 p.m., Alana pressed the speed dial. The call connected to the CEO's direct line, extension 7001. It rang only once. "Julian," she said, her voice carrying the calm, unquestionable authority of someone who had spent 3 decades making life-or-death decisions. "I'm downstairs, in the main lobby." 30 pairs of eyes were now locked on her face. Jasmine's livestream audience had crested 25,000 viewers, the comment section a meaningless, incomprehensible blur of exploding emojis and frantic text. "There seems to be," Alana continued, her surgical precision cutting through the marble-walled silence, "a fundamental misunderstanding regarding my identity and my business here today. Could you please come down? And Julian, bring the legal department with you." The line was quiet for a single heart-stopping beat. Then a clear, authoritative voice replied, a voice that was now faintly audible to those standing closest to her. "On my way, Mother." The word, mother, hung in the air like a physical object. It was a bomb that had just been armed, waiting to detonate and obliterate everything in its blast radius. Tiffany Vance's smartphone slipped from her trembling, sweaty fingers, clattering against the marble floor. In the suddenly dead, silent lobby, the sound echoed like a gunshot. The great unraveling. Richard Sterling's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, like a beached fish gasping for its last breaths of air. His expensive Brooks Brothers suit suddenly felt like a straitjacket, 3 sizes too small. The healthy, confident color drained from his face as if someone had pulled a hidden plug at the base of his neck. "Mother," he whispered, the word a ragged, incredulous puff of air. Karen Price's ever-present clipboard fell from her nerveless fingers. Papers detailing employment policies, fraud protocols, and daily transaction logs scattered across the floor, their bureaucratic certainty now utterly meaningless. Her eyes, wide with panic, darted between Alana and the bank of executive elevators, as if she were watching a slow-motion car crash from which she could not look away. The crowd, sensing the seismic shift, the tectonic realignment of power, pressed closer. Phones were raised even higher. The livestream chat became a digital scream. "She said, 'Mother!' It's the CEO's mom. It's his mom." Tiffany and Richard are so beyond fired. "I am recording this for the history books." Plot twist of the millennium. 3:02 p.m. The arrival. The executive elevator, reserved for the highest echelons of corporate power, chimed with the soft, sophisticated tone of precision-engineered Swiss machinery. Its brushed steel doors slid apart, silent as a guillotine, revealing the final devastating act of the drama. Julian Reed stepped into the lobby. At 34, he was the youngest CEO in the 150-year history of Viridian Trust Bank. He stood 6'3", wore a custom-tailored Tom Ford suit that cost more than Tiffany's annual salary, and carried the quiet, unshakable confidence of a man who had earned his Harvard MBA, his Rhodes Scholarship, and his seat at the head of the table. Behind him, emerging like a phalanx of corporate power, was his inner circle. David Kim, the razor-sharp head of the legal department, in a suit that screamed, "Billion-dollar litigation," Sarah Walsh, the formidable communications director, already clutching an iPad displaying the rapidly spreading social media firestorm. And Janet Torres, the regional vice president, Richard Sterling's direct boss, her face a thunderous mask of fury. In the span of 10 seconds, the lobby transformed from a stage for small-minded bigotry into a corporate battlefield. "Mr. Reed," Richard Sterling stammered, his voice cracking like a pubescent teenager's. He scurried forward, his hand awkwardly extended, a desperate, sycophantic smile plastered on his terrified face. "I had no idea we weren't expecting—" Julian Reed's eyes, the same calm, intelligent eyes as his mother's, swept the scene with the cold, analytical precision that had made him a legend on Wall Street. He took in every detail: his mother's belongings scattered across the marble counter, the torn pieces of the check, the 30-plus witnesses with their phones still recording, the petrified teller cowering against the back wall. His gaze finally settled on his mother, seated with the same profound dignity she had maintained through the grueling years of medical school, residency, and 3 decades of pioneering surgical practice. "Mother," he said, his voice quiet but resonating through the entire lobby, "I am profoundly and deeply sorry. Please, tell me what happened here." The moment of recognition. The crowd collectively gasped. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Jasmine's live stream shattered 30,000 viewers. Screenshots with the hashtag Bajo Bank CEO's mom were already the #1 trending topic on X in the United States. Local blogger Marcus Brooks was frantically typing on his laptop, his fingers flying across the keys. Breaking. CEO's mother, a prominent surgeon, racially profiled at his own bank. Tiffany Vance stood frozen against the back wall, her perfectly manicured nails now digging painful crescents into her palms. The theatrical confidence, the smug superiority, had evaporated completely, leaving behind a 20-something woman who, in a single horrifying moment, understood that her career, and possibly her entire future, was over. She never said who she was," Tiffany whispered, the words barely audible. "She shouldn't have to," Julian Reed replied, his tone as sharp and cold as forged steel. "This is Dr. Alana Reed. She is the chief of pediatric neurosurgery at Emory University Hospital. She has been a decorated and deeply respected member of this city's medical community for 30 years. And," he paused, letting the weight of his next words settle on the room like a physical pressure, "she has been a member of this institution's board of directors since 2020. She is also the largest single individual shareholder of Viridian Trust Bank nationwide." The power reveal. David Kim, the head of legal, stepped forward, his tablet already displaying a dossier. "For the record," he announced, his voice projecting to every corner of the room, "Dr. Reed currently holds 1.2 million shares of VTB common stock, valued at approximately $42 million as of market close yesterday." The numbers landed like a series of brutal body blows. Her annual income from surgical fees and medical consultations exceeds $900,000. She serves on the advisory boards of 3 major medical technology firms. Her private real estate holdings are valued in excess of $15 million. Each fact was another nail being hammered into the coffin of Tiffany and Richard's assumptions. Communications Director Sarah Walsh was already a whirlwind of activity, her fingers flying across her iPad, drafting press releases and crisis management strategies. "The story is jumping to national outlets," she whispered urgently to Julian. "CNN is requesting a statement. The New York Times is on the line. The Congressional Black Caucus has already issued a preliminary statement." The crowd's realization. The elderly woman in pearls suddenly found the pattern on the marble floor utterly fascinating, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. The businessman who had shaken his head in disgust was now inching his way toward the exit, hoping to disappear. But the young Latino father stepped forward, holding his daughter's small hand. He looked directly at Alana. "Dr. Reed," he said, his voice clear and steady. "I am so sorry this happened to you. My name is Carlos, and this is my daughter Sophia. We saw everything. We will be witnesses for you." His little girl looked up at Alana with wide, innocent eyes. "My mommy told me that you're a doctor who helps sick kids, like my cousin when he had the thing in his head." For the first time all afternoon, a crack appeared in Alana's serene composure. A warm, genuine smile broke across her face as she looked at the little girl. "I do, sweetheart. It's the most important job in the world." That single human moment cut through the corporate tension like a ray of sunlight piercing through dark storm clouds. The security reversal. Marcus Williams, the security guard, took a deep breath, stepped forward, and did something he had never done in his 20 years of service. He removed his official cap, held it in his hands, and spoke directly to the CEO. "Sir, with all due respect, I want it on the official record that Dr. Reed conducted herself with complete and total dignity throughout this entire ordeal. She never raised her voice. She never became confrontational. She never made my job harder than it had to be." His eyes met Alana's for a brief, powerful moment. "She made it harder by being so damned graceful." Julian Reed nodded, a look of profound respect on his face. "Thank you, Mr. Williams. Your integrity has been noted." The final secret. As the corporate team began to cordon off the scene, Julian placed a protective hand on his mother's shoulder. The gesture was simple, but it spoke volumes. It was the gesture of a son to his mother, of a CEO to his most powerful board member, a statement of power and principle. "There's one more thing everyone here needs to understand," he said, his voice addressing not just the crowd in the lobby, but the tens of thousands watching through the lens of Jasmine's phone. "The major acquisition we announced last month, the Carter Reed Medical Group purchasing our entire healthcare and biomedical lending division for $450 million. He looked at his mother, his face glowing with unmistakable pride. "Dr. Reed isn't just our largest shareholder. As of next week, she is slated to become our single largest corporate partner." He let the implications sink in. That partnership represents over 900 jobs in this city, an annual payroll of over $100 million, and a commitment to invest $50 million in community health initiatives over the next 5 years. The silence in the room was now absolute. It was the silence of a vacuum. Tiffany Vance, her face as white as the marble floor, slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold, hard ground, her career and her bigoted assumptions crumbling into dust around her. Jasmine's live-stream viewer counter ticked past 40,000 and continued its relentless climb. 3:15 p.m., the executive conference room, 70th floor. The mahogany-paneled boardroom was a sanctuary of corporate power, overlooking downtown Atlanta like the throne room of a modern god. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the sprawling city skyline, while discreet state-of-the-art cameras recorded every angle for legal and archival purposes. The emergency board meeting had been convened with a speed that was utterly unprecedented. Dr. Alana Reed sat at the head of the massive, polished table. She was no longer the woman who had been publicly humiliated in the lobby 30 minutes prior. Here, in this room, she was Board Member Reed, the incoming Chief Medical Officer of the Carter Reed Medical Group, and the bank's largest and most influential individual investor. Julian Reed took his seat at the opposite end, flanked by David Kim and a team of lawyers whose combined billable hours could likely fund a small nation. "The evidence is comprehensive and frankly damning," David Kim began, his voice carrying the calm, lethal weight of a Harvard law degree and 2 decades of high-stakes corporate litigation. He slid tablets across the mahogany surface to each of the assembled board members. We have security footage from 5 different angles. We have the live stream video, which, as of 10 minutes ago, had over 50,000 concurrent viewers and is now being replayed on every major news network. We have preliminary statements from over 30 customer witnesses. He queued up an audio file, and the ugly words from the lobby filled the pristine, soundproofed room. People like you don't belong here. These people always have a story. Certain demographics attempt these schemes. The legal framework. Rachel Morrison, a senior partner from the bank's outside counsel, one of the most powerful law firms in the country, joined via a crystal-clear video conference call on an 85-inch screen. "We're looking at a catastrophic level of legal exposure," she announced with cold, clinical precision. "There are potential violations of multiple federal and state statutes, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, multiple sections of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Georgia Fair Business Practices Act. The legal avalanche has already begun." She switched to a new slide. Potential damages in civil court could easily range from $60 to $150 million based on recent precedents in similar cases. Wells Fargo paid $175 million for systemic discrimination. Bank of America settled a case for $335 million just last year. Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their $1,000 Italian leather chairs. The costs of a federal regulatory investigation alone will likely run between $8 and $10 million, Rachel continued. A resulting consent decree and the required federal monitoring would add another $5 million annually for at least the next 5 years. The financial consequences. The chief financial officer, Patricia Yang, a woman known for her nerves of steel, looked pale as she began her presentation. The numbers she displayed on the screen made several executives physically reach for glasses of water. Our stock price impact modeling, based on the current media velocity of this incident, suggests a potential decline of between 15 and 20% upon market open tomorrow. Based on our current market cap of $5 billion, we are facing potential losses of between $750 million and $1 billion in shareholder value. In a single day. The silence in the room was broken only by the soft, almost inaudible hum of the advanced climate control system. Brand reputation recovery will require a massive, multi-platform campaign, Patricia continued, her voice grim. A conservative estimate is $30 million over the next 2 years. A more realistic estimate, given that this has already gone viral on a national scale, is closer to $60 million over 3 to 4 years. Her next slide showed a dizzying array of social media analytics. The hashtag #TrancheBankingWhileBlack has been used on X over 200,000 times in the last hour alone. TikTok videos using the hashtag have accumulated over 5 million views. The story is currently trending globally, above international politics and celebrity news. The ultimatum. Dr. Alana Reed leaned forward, her hands folded on the table with the same precision and steadiness she used in the operating room. When she spoke, her voice, though quiet, commanded the absolute attention of everyone in the room. It was a voice that held 30 years of life and death authority. "My demands," she said, "are not negotiable." She began to count them off on her fingers, using the same methodical approach she would when listing the critical requirements for a complex surgery. First, the immediate termination of Tiffany Vance and Richard Sterling. With cause, there will be no severance packages, no golden parachutes, no positive references. A permanent, detailed notation will be made in their employment records regarding the cause for termination. Legal Director David Kim was already nodding, furiously typing instructions to his team. Second, Karen Price is to be suspended without pay, pending a full and transparent investigation into her complicity. If that investigation confirms she upheld and encouraged the discriminatory actions, she will also be terminated with cause. Third, a complete overhaul of employee training, a comprehensive mandatory bias interruption program for all 1,200 Georgia branch employees. This will be a 50-hour certification program developed in partnership with leading civil rights organizations, not the pathetic 4-hour online module you currently use. There will be monthly refresher courses and quarterly assessments that will be directly tied to performance reviews, bonuses, and eligibility for promotion. The scope of the demand was unprecedented in the American banking industry. Fourth, a formal partnership with the Atlanta chapter of the Urban League. This will include the development of the training curriculum and ongoing independent oversight of its implementation. This partnership will be funded by an annual $2 million commitment from the bank for the next 10 years. Fifth, an independent third-party diversity and equity audit of this entire corporation to be conducted by a nationally recognized civil rights law firm. The complete, unredacted results of that audit will be published publicly on our website. We will also implement quarterly public reporting of all bias-related incidents, with full transparency. Resistance and negotiation. Robert Hayes, the regional director for the entire Southeast and Janet Torres's boss, attempted a feeble bit of damage control. Dr. Reed, while we are all deeply, profoundly sorry for this isolated incident, perhaps immediate termination is an excessively harsh measure. A suspension, mandatory retraining, a formal reprimand in their files. Isolated? Dr. Reed's voice was suddenly as sharp as a scalpel's edge, the tone she reserved for a promising medical student who showed up to her operating room unprepared. Mr. Hayes, what happened in that lobby was not an isolated incident or an accidental slip of the tongue. It was a systematic, deliberate, and public dehumanization performed for a live audience. It was a choice. Your employees chose to escalate at every turn. They chose humiliation over simple verification. They chose prejudice over protocol. They chose their own baseless assumptions over the facts that were sitting in plain sight right in front of them. She looked directly at Hayes, her gaze unwavering. Those choices have consequences. Communications Director Sarah Walsh interjected, her voice urgent. Update. CNN is now reporting the story live. The hosts of The View have requested Dr. Reed for an exclusive interview tomorrow morning. The office of Senator Warnock has called, requesting a full briefing on our diversity and inclusion practices. The corporate crisis was now a full-blown political and media firestorm. The acquisition card. Dr. Reed saved her most powerful piece of leverage for last. And then, she said, her voice dropping slightly, there is the matter of our pending acquisition. She opened her own tablet, displaying the complex multi-million-dollar contracts that represented months of intense negotiation. The Carter Reed Medical Group's $450 million acquisition of your healthcare lending division, which is scheduled to close next Friday. The attention of every person in that room, already sharp, focused to a microscopic point. As you all know, this acquisition represents nearly a quarter of your total projected business growth for the next fiscal year. Healthcare lending generated over $900 million in revenue for this bank last year. Our partnership is projected to bring over 900 high-paying jobs to the Atlanta area. The annual payroll impact alone is over $100 million. She paused, letting the colossal numbers settle into the silent room. The community investment over the 5-year contract term is $50 million. The medical equipment financing is projected at $80 million annually. The physician practice loans are projected at $30 million annually. The nuclear option. This incident, she said, the words hanging in the climate-controlled air like a surgical blade poised directly over a major artery, jeopardizes everything. The Carter-Reed Medical Group has already received preliminary exploratory calls this afternoon from your competitors, from Chase, from Wells Fargo, and from Bank of America. Each of those institutions, I might add, has already demonstrated superior metrics in diversity, equity, and community investment. CFO Patricia Yang's face went completely ashen. "Dr. Reed," she stammered, "that acquisition represents 35% of our projected growth for the next fiscal year. Without it, we will miss our earnings targets by a catastrophic margin. Stock analysts have already priced in the healthcare sector expansion," added Michael Brooks, the chief strategy officer. "A cancellation of the deal would trigger immediate multi-level downgrades from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's." Dr. Reed's expression remained as calm and unreadable as a surgeon's mask. "Then it seems we are all in alignment on the critical importance of resolving this situation, comprehensively and immediately. The executive decision." Julian Reed stood up, calling for an immediate vote. "All board members in favor of implementing Dr. Reed's 5 demands, in full and without modification, please indicate by raising your hand." 11 hands shot into the air without a moment's hesitation. The motion carries unanimously. David Kim was already on his phone, speaking to the head of Human Resources. "The authorization has been given, effective immediately. Chelsea Vance and Richard Sterling are terminated, with cause. Have security escort them from the building. Their network access is to be revoked now. Karen Price is suspended without pay, effective immediately, pending a full investigation. And find a security guard named Marcus Williams. He's getting a promotion to branch security chief, and a significant immediate salary increase." The settlement. Outside counsel Rachel Morrison quickly outlined the plan to resolve the civil liability. "We propose a comprehensive settlement package. This will include a substantial, undisclosed financial compensation package directly to Dr. Reed, with standard confidentiality provisions. A $2 million immediate contribution to the Atlanta Urban League. A $1 million fund to be distributed among 5 national civil rights advocacy groups. And the creation of a $3 million annual community investment fund dedicated to providing banking services and financial literacy programs in underserved neighborhoods. The implementation timeline. The massive corporate machine, now pointed in a new direction, began to move with terrifying Swiss watch precision. Technology implementation begins tonight, announced Lisa Park, the Chief Information Officer. We are rolling out new bias detection software on all customer interaction systems. It uses real-time monitoring of audio and video feeds to flag discriminatory language or behavior and automatically escalates the incident to corporate oversight. The new training rollout begins this Wednesday at our corporate training center, added James Rodriguez, the head of HR. The partnership with the NHACP Legal Defense Fund has been confirmed. Their experts will be co-leading the curriculum development starting tomorrow morning. A public statement will be released at 6 p.m. sharp, Sarah Walsh confirmed. It has been drafted and is awaiting Dr. Reed's final approval before publication. Accountability measures. From this quarter forward, all senior management bonuses will be directly tied to new diversity and equity metrics, Patricia Yang announced. Customer satisfaction surveys will be updated to include specific, detailed questions related to bias and respectful treatment. An anonymous, third-party reporting system for both customers and employees will launch within 72 hours. The monthly audits by the independent civil rights firm will begin on the 1st of next month. We will implement a $10,000 fine structure paid by the branch from its operating budget for every single verified incident of bias. The systematic overhaul was not just comprehensive, it was a revolution. The board resolution. Julian Reed stood, his voice resonating with the finality of absolute corporate authority. Dr. Reed, on behalf of Viridian Trust Bank, I offer our most profound and sincere apologies. The treatment you received today is a stain on this institution, and it contradicts every single value we claim to represent. More importantly, the powerful, necessary changes you have demanded today will ensure that no other customer ever again will have to experience what you were forced to endure. He looked directly into the camera that was recording the meeting for the official legal record. Corporate culture does not change with memos and mission statements. It changes with accountability. Today, we are choosing accountability over reputation management. We are choosing systemic reform over shallow, surface-level apologies. Dr. Alana Reed nodded slowly, a look of grim satisfaction on her face. It was the look of a surgeon who has just completed a long, arduous, and complex operation. The patient would survive. The disease, the cancer of prejudice, had been excised. Now the long and difficult process of recovery could begin. 6 p.m. Same day. The lobby of the Viridian Trust Bank had been transformed. The site of public humiliation had become a stage for public accountability. News crews from every major Atlanta station had set up cameras and lights, their reporters delivering breaking updates to their evening audiences. This is 11 Alive News with a developing story out of downtown Atlanta. Viridian Trust Bank has just announced sweeping, unprecedented policy changes following a shocking incident of discrimination that went viral across the globe this afternoon. The security footage, which had been a record of shame, was now playing on screens across the city and the nation, but it served a new purpose. It was no longer just evidence of a crime. It was now the catalyst for change, the immediate consequences. Tiffany Vance was cleaning out her desk under the stony, watchful eyes of two corporate security officers. She was 28 years old. Her promising career in banking was over. Her LinkedIn profile had already been updated to the sad, generic phrase, "seeking new opportunities." Her official termination letter cited gross misconduct, discriminatory behavior, and a fundamental violation of corporate values. There was no severance. There were no references. There would be no second chances. Her exit interview, conducted by the head of HR, lasted less than 5 minutes. "Ms. Vance," James Rodriguez said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion, "your actions today violated multiple federal civil rights laws and our corporate policy. This termination is with cause and is effective immediately." Richard Sterling faced the same swift, unceremonious corporate justice. 12 years as a branch manager ended with a small cardboard box of personal effects and a silent, humiliating escort to the employee parking garage. His termination letter included a single, career-ending sentence that would follow him for the rest of his professional life. Not eligible for rehire at this institution or any of its subsidiaries due to documented discriminatory conduct. The world of high finance was small. Word would travel fast. Karen Price received a different, though no less chilling, message. A formal letter of suspension, pending investigation. "Ms. Price, you have 48 hours to provide a detailed, written explanation for your role in the incident that occurred today. The retention of outside legal counsel is strongly recommended. The aftermath and the ripple effect. Months turned into a year. The story of Dr. Alana Reed at the Viridian Trust Bank became more than just a viral moment. It became a case study taught in business schools and law schools across the country. The Reed Protocols, as they came to be known, became the new gold standard for corporate accountability and bias prevention. Ashley Martinez, the young 22-year-old junior teller who had watched the entire incident unfold in horror, was promoted to assistant manager within 6 months, and then to branch manager of a new location a year later, with a salary increase that changed her family's life. "I want to be part of the solution," she told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in a follow-up story. "That day showed me exactly what kind of leader I never, ever want to become." The $2 million annual donation to the Atlanta Urban League was transformative. Executive Director Michael Harrison announced the expansion of their financial literacy and homeownership programs into 15 underserved neighborhoods. Dr. Reed's horrifying experience has, in a strange way, become a catalyst for profound good, Harrison said at a press conference. A moment of crisis has been transformed into a decade of opportunity for thousands of families. The Community Advisory Board, composed of 12 members representing a diverse cross-section of Atlanta's neighborhoods, became a powerful force for accountability, reviewing bias reports, and ensuring the bank's policies were serving all communities equitably. The story did not end there. 2 years later, Dr. Alana Reed and her son Julian launched the Carter Reed Family Foundation, endowing it with $50 million of their personal funds. Its mission was twofold: to expand access to healthcare in underserved communities and to promote economic justice and financial literacy nationwide. The Foundation's first major initiative was the creation of a national scholarship program for minority students pursuing degrees in medicine and finance. Excellence is not limited by zip code, Dr. Reed announced at the Foundation's inaugural gala. Opportunity should not be either. Dr. Reed continued her groundbreaking work at Emory, saving the lives of children with inoperable brain tumors. But she also took on a new role. She became a reluctant but powerful public advocate for systemic change. She testified before Congress during hearings that ultimately led to the passage of the Financial Services Equality Act, bipartisan legislation that mandated bias interruption training and transparent accountability reporting across all federally insured financial institutions. The recognition that moved her most, however, did not come from a government body or a magazine cover. It came in a small, handwritten letter delivered to her office at the hospital. Dear Dr. Reed, my name is Sophia. You met me and my daddy at the bank a long time ago. I am in 3rd grade now. My teacher taught us about heroes, and I wrote my paper about you. You helped my daddy get a loan from the bank to start his own construction business. Now he has 10 employees. You also help sick kids like my cousin. My teacher says a hero is someone who makes the world a better place, even when people are mean to them. Thank you for being a hero. Love, Sophia. Alana folded the letter and placed it in her desk drawer, next to a framed photo of her son, Julian, and the tattered, torn pieces of that $75,000 check, which she had saved and mounted as a permanent reminder. A reminder that dignity is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It is something you own. And sometimes you have to be willing to tear down an entire system just to remind them of that fact. Change doesn't always come from a protest or a political campaign. Sometimes it comes from a single person's quiet, unshakable refusal to be diminished. Dr. Reed's story proves that strategic patience, profound strength, and unwavering principle can topple systems built on the rotten foundations of assumption and bias. But her story is just one story. And now I want to hear yours. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between staying silent and standing up? Have you witnessed an injustice, big or small, and wondered what you could do? Share your story, your thoughts, your feelings in the comments below. Your experience matters. Your voice creates change. Your courage inspires others to find their own. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their own power and their own non-negotiable dignity. Subscribe to our channel for more true stories of inspiring transformations that prove that justice isn't just possible. It's inevitable when good people refuse to look away. Remember, your worth is never determined by the narrow, clouded vision of others. Stay calm, stay strong, stay strategic, and let your actions, your excellence, and your integrity speak far louder than their ignorance. Until next time, be the change.